All right, welcome everyone. The recording has started for today's brown bag session. As always, we appreciate each of you joining us, spending your lunchtime with us when you could be either eating or doing some other thing. As we progress throughout today's brown bag session, do note that this session is being recorded and the recording will be published on the Division of Purchasing's website for later view as you would like. If you have any questions or would like to interject with anything, please just then unmute or post your comment or questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring the chat throughout today's presentation. And so as you post those there, we'll address those as they come in. Before we kick off today's webinar, do note we have some upcoming events going on. The first after this one, of course, the first being the Reverse Trade Show that will be held on May 19th. This event is for each of you. We will not have a brown bag session in May, but rather we'll have the Reverse Trade Show hosted by the Utah chapter of NIGP. This event is an in-person event at the Mountain America Expo Center from 8 to 3. The Mountain America Expo Center, if you're not already aware, is located out in Sandy, Utah. To attend this event, you would register on the NIGP Utah chapter website. You can see the URL there. I'm going to just post it real quickly in the chat here in this Google Meet. Please do register. Note that registration does close on May 2nd. This is a fairly large event, inviting both vendors and all public entities in the state of Utah to attend. From a public entity standpoint, a city, a school district, a charter school, executive branch agency, this is at no cost to you. So please do, if you have not already, register for the event. A great opportunity not only to interact with vendors, but a really robust agenda presented by the NIGP Utah chapter. If you have any questions about the event, the same URL to the chapter website, you can find some additional details there. And then in June, we have a PEP seminar that will be more of a half-day seminar held both in person and virtual at the Taylorsville State Office Building with a focus on supply chain management. Registration for the June 23rd PEP seminar is not yet open, but please do just keep an eye out on the state purchasing newsletters and our state purchasing website for when registration does open. With that being said, and to the point of why you are all here, we have a presentation today by Laurel DeLagerheim and Blake Porter on the topic of the state's Amazon business account. We'll just turn the time over to Laurel. But following this session, would you need a certificate, please send those to Amy Christensen. You can see her email address there on the screen, and I will post it in the chat just as I turn it over to Laurel. Any certificate requests, send those over. This training does qualify for a 1-hour certificate. With that being said, I'm going to stop my screen sharing and turn it over to you, Laurel.
Thank you, Solomon. You guys let me know when my screen pops up. It's kind of hard to see both at the same time.
It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. So like Solomon said, my name is Laurel DeLagerheim. I am taking over the Amazon administrative duties from the illustrious Blake Theo Porter. He's here co-presenting with me today. I've only been the account admin for a few months, so I'm slowly but surely catching my footing, figuring everything out. So Blake's here to back me up in case there's a question you guys have that I don't know if there's a topic here that I just need a little bit of backup on. Blake's here as my backup resource. That goes for anything, communication wise. If there's a question that you guys have that is presented to me after this presentation with your account set up, anything like that, be sure to reach out to me. If I don't have the answer, I'm going to bug Blake to get it, that's for sure. So he's here. He's here as just kind of an additional learning net or resource for us to lean on here. So we appreciate him doing that for us still. My mouse is fidgety. Okay, so the online marketplace contract with Amazon, actually has a new contract number. It's now under MA 3787. We did have a previous contract number. I am going to turn the time over to Blake real quick for him to kind of introduce the Omnia participation agreement that we have for this contract that was executed on January 1st of this year. So I'm going to turn that over to Blake for a few minutes to just introductory, some background information on the new contract itself.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Michael, Glenn, you're on the call. If you ever want to correct me on my talking about this, since you ran the procurement, feel free. But like Laurel just got done saying, we partnered with Omnia to do a online marketplace RFP. So kind of unlike the old Amazon contract that was called office and school supplies, and we were very much being, broad in what an office or school supply was. This RFP was a bit more clear that we're not going out for just office and school supplies. We're going out for vendors that have an e-market online marketplace. And so that's really good, I think, because I think it was kind of a confusing contract for some people at the start, the old Amazon contract, just in the sense that intuitively they had something in their mind of what an office supply is or is not. It's like, oh, that's like paper or staplers and stuff like that. It's stuff you can only get, Office Depot or something. And that's all true, of course, but the intent has always been that really anything you need for work is an office supply. Anything you need for your school is a school supply. Is it okay if I steal the sharing for a second?
Go ahead.
It's mine. Okay. So if you go to our website, hopefully you can see my screen now, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any delays, I blame on the VPN. So if you go to our website and you search for Amazon, we got the two contracts, right? And this is somewhat important, somewhat not important. I'll tell you why it's important and why it's not a big deal. If you're on our Amazon account, it's already happened. You don't need to worry about anything. If you're using the state of Utah business account that state purchasing is paying for, we've already made any and all necessary switches to the new contract. You don't really need to concern yourself with anything because the scope is really pretty much the same as it's always been. And all the rules and everything we've created and everything we've always talked about in all our previous fun Amazon discussions. I think this is like the 6th time I've presented about this, either in a brown bag or at PEP or something. And so you don't really need to worry about it. But if you're not using our state account, it might be something worth looking into if you haven't already linked your Amazon business account with the new contract. So if you see my screen here, so this is the old contract. It expires at the end of this calendar year in December. And this is the new contract. And you can tell it goes quite a bit further. And so initially, anyone that wanted to opt in to the contract, they had to link their Amazon business account with Amazon or use the state's business account, right? And it's kind of the same thing. If you want to now use the new contract with Omnia and you haven't linked it with that contract yet, I would recommend that you do so. And there's a link here on how to do that. So any eligible user who already has an Amazon business account, doesn't want to use the state purchasing Amazon business account, you can still use this contract by following this link here. So if you just find the newer contract, MA 3787, there's a link right there, and it takes you to this web page. I'm not really familiar with setting up the account with Omnia, but I assume that doesn't cost anything. And then they will work with Amazon to get your Amazon business account linked with the new contract. So that might be something important to do if you're not using our account and you haven't done it yet. The other thing I wanted to just look at really quick was the kind of how the new contract is worded. So if we look at the actual language of the contract now for the scope, again, this is an e-market, so everything's available, and we're still carving out the two things that are unavailable. So the two things that are still unavailable through the Amazon statewide contract is IT and furniture. The main reason, of course, that furniture, especially for our state agencies, they're required to use UCI, and so that's the main reason why furniture is not on the table. And then IT, this time we have this reference in the contract that how we define IT is we use the DTS exception list. And Laurel, are we talking about the exception list later, or we?
Oh yeah, I've got it in there.
Oh yeah. So we'll
Oh, yeah.
look at the exception list to Amy. I see your question. And yes, COVID tests and medical supplies are included. So literally, if it's not the forbidden IT that we'll look at on the DTS exception list later, and it's not office furniture, and it is for work purposes, you can utilize the Amazon statewide contract to buy it. Now, we have other statewide contracts. You might have other agency contracts, of course, that maybe your entity should use. So it's not like you should always use Amazon. And I want to make that clear that when we did the e-market RFP, I believe we had 5 or 6 awards, and Amazon was just one of them. So we already have contracts with some of the other people that are awarded, like the Chariot Group. If you come down here, there's a related contract with the Chariot Group. And if you look at who was awarded, I believe we already have Granger and Office Depot contracts, and maybe that's why they haven't signed yet. So, but anyway, so it's not just Amazon, that got awarded. And I don't want this to ever sound like a plug for Amazon, but we get so many questions about it because it's such a unique contract, statewide contract, and our involvement in trying to administer the account to kind of wrangle in the spending that's been happening on Amazon, the past couple decades or so. So it is kind of a unique one, and that's why we talk about it a lot. And yeah, Julie Fisher, that's a really good point. We have specific contracts through MCAP that are going to specialize in those medical things. So with the supply chain issues, just cast a wide net, look at all of them, try to get it wherever you can. So, but yeah, I really like that it's clear now in the new contract that we use this list to determine what is IT, and we'll talk more about that later. But basically, high level, smaller items like, this computer mouse would be okay, but anything that would, touch a network or, come serious hardware, stuff like that would not be okay.
And you had a question come in, Blake, from Joe Bryant on how do we verify that our entity is linked to the state contract?
So, Joe, that's a good question. I think you need to contact the Amazon. I don't have that information. So on the old contract, there was a similar link here that you click and you would submit something to Amazon customer service and they would get that linked up for you. So honestly, I would just resubmit it through the new link just to be safe, and they'll either tell you you're already on it at some point, would be my guess, or they would get you added. Great. That's all I want to talk about for now.
Blake, let me ask one question.
No.
As an end user.
Hi, Atara. Yeah, sure.
As an end user, I have a P card and I have a business Amazon, and you tell me that mine is already moved over to the new one and I don't need to do anything, correct?
If you're on the States, yeah.
I am on the States.
If you're on the States Amazon business account,
Okay,
which you should be if you have a state P card and you're with a state agency. Hopefully we've gotten just about everyone migrated.
Well, because you denied my IT request, I'm pretty sure I'm on the state.
Yeah, there we go. That's how you know. Is if someone denies your request to buy something IT, you're on the right place. So.
Well, just for the end user, as an end user, I recently bought some backpacks and it says, hey, this is blocked. That's a great way to know if you are an end user. If it says your organization has blocked this item, go and look up a monitor and you'll know immediately.
Yeah, you'll see either blocked or restricted. And Yeah, we'll probably talk about that more, but you can always talk to me or Laurel. Well, I guess Laurel now, if you have any questions about why something's getting restricted or blocked.
Thanks, Blake. Can I steal back?
No.
Okay. Next time I won't ask. So just to cover, adding on to what Tara said, who's an eligible user, this is the same as any statewide contract as far as eligible users go. We've got cities, counties, state executive branch agencies, higher ed, independent state authority or state agencies that don't fall under like the AG's office, I believe, Department of Education. They're all still eligible to use this state account. The state legislature has an account, state courts have an account. So basically, if you're on here as an attendee, as K through 12, Davis County School District, Granite School District, I think you guys are all set up. But any school districts, cities, counties, anyone that does not already have the state Amazon account, reach out to me. I'll guide you through the steps of setting it up, but it's really quite simple. I'll send you an MOU. We'll fill this out. It'll just say, hey, you're going to be able to use our Amazon business account. You're going to need to link a credit card with this. Like Blake was saying, they don't do, or I don't know if we talked about that yet, but they don't do purchase orders. It's all through P cards. So we'll link you up with an account underneath this. You'll fill this or sign this, send it back. Our CPO, Wendy Apirath, will go ahead and give her signature on it. Everyone file this away for our records, and then we will go ahead and get you set up with an account underneath the state's business account. So you guys no longer have to pay for your Prime account. That's something that the state is paying for under this new contract. I did want to touch base just because we are the Division of Purchasing and we live and die by the procurement code. So I wanted to touch base on the purchasing flow chart to make sure everybody was on the same page. Just because we have it on state contract does not mean your default is to go to Amazon and purchase it. Your number one thing that you're going to have to remember is this service available through a different agency that is mandatory use, a la UCI. So your very first go-to is going to be UCI. We know that they provide certain pieces of clothing. They do furniture. They do services. So just make sure you're reaching out to the necessary or applicable UCI people that you have. I believe the only entities that don't have to go through UCI are the School for Deaf and Blind and PolySubs, correct, Blake?
Yep. And,
okay.
And random state agencies that their attorney interprets them as a political subdivision.
Oh, there's
yeah.
that. So everybody, in theory, should be reaching out to UCI first, checking to make sure that, if UCI can't provide it or your time frame is unreasonable, things like that, then you can move forward and do a search of your internal agency contracts to see if you've already got an individual agency contract for something specific. If not, then go ahead, and that's when you're going to go to the state cooperative level and use the Amazon account. So I just want to make sure that everybody is still following the procurement rules in regards to this contract. It's not just a default of, oh, I'm going to go to Amazon and one click, as I sometimes do personally. So Blake kind of touched on this high level. The attachment is, or the scope of work that we have. There's 4 categories. There's education-based accessories, displays, products, and related supplies. IT, technology, peripheral devices and related products. Maintenance, repair, and operation products. And office-based accessories, decor, products, and related supplies. So this is directly in the contract. If you scroll down a few pages, this is what the scope of work is. But as Blake touched on just a few minutes ago, the categories that are not included for the state of Utah would be the IT and peripheral devices and office-based accessories. So we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper right now, just to make sure that you guys understand There's blocked items and there's restricted items. So a blocked item is typically outside of the scope of the contract. Furniture and IT items will show up as blocked on your state business account. This means that the item cannot be purchased. A restricted item just means that it's in the gray area. So we're not entirely sure if it can be under the furniture. I believe we had a beanbag purchased the other day. So it was technically furniture, but it wasn't furniture. So when you have items like that, if there's a question on anything, just reach out and we can help you. Either unblock those items, making sure that they are not underneath another category, like the furniture category. Make sure that they're applicable and we're not just unblocking just to unblock. But computer mice, keyboards, cords, anything that's on that IT list, we can check and make sure. Restricted just means that whoever your approver is, they're going to put a second set of eyes on your purchase and make sure that it doesn't fall underneath one of those categories. So that just means you can buy it, you can put it in your cart if it's restricted, but you do need an additional approval level. And we'll go into approvers and how the accounts are set up in a little bit. But just wanted to make sure that you guys are clear on the differences between the blocked and the restricted items. Blocked, you absolutely can't even add it to your cart. Restricted, you can. You just need your agency or department approval on that.
Yeah, can I say, oh, you're still here, so this is great. The reason why you'll see so many things as being restricted is just because it's not an exact science. So if you see restricted, don't be too scared, okay? I have a lot of people that have reached out when they see it's restricted and ask me if I can unblock it. It's not necessary. Or I'm betting there's people that see restricted and just assume that means they can't buy it. And so it's important to know what that means. Restricted, like Laurel said, it's either going to be a gray area item, like a computer accessory that's okay, like a keyboard and mouse, versus some other vendor might use that exact same commodity code to describe an actual computer, which is not okay. Because we don't control what commodity code the vendors choose, and that's how we block and restrict, is by commodity code on the back end within the system. And so there's going to be a lot of things that are totally okay restricted, and there's going to even be sometimes things that are okay that are blocked. Like Laurel said, we had a beanbag chair. That's not the office chair, that you would normally get through UCI and stuff, right? And so we felt comfortable unblocking that for them because that's not the type of furniture we're trying to block. But yeah, so it's just be patient as you use the system. We've tried to make it a lot better than it was the first year we used this. So it's been a couple years now, and I think it's gotten a lot better, a lot more user-friendly, and a lot less things showing up as blocked.
Yeah. So like we said, this one, how Tara was saying, oh, how can I tell if my account's set up? This is what she was talking about. This banner that comes up on the top, this will either say, this is blocked. I've got another screenshot on my next slide that'll show you like restricted stuff and what that looks like and the difference. But this goes back to that previous screen. You can't put this in your cart. It's absolutely blocked. There's no way you can add it. For restricted items, this is kind of additional what Blake was talking about. You can add it to your cart. You do need an agency approver. This is where some of the broad categories have that gray area where we're not 100% sure you should be buying it, so we just want a second set of eyes on it. Blake was saying the vendors choose which commodity codes they register their products under. So if it's something that is a high level, oh, this is IT, but is it really IT? It's like what do they call them, the little thumb drive or something. Yeah, it's IT, but do we need to get that through DTS? Let's look at that exceptions list and make a decision. So things like that where they might be blocked versus restricted, this is just kind of helping you guys see what those different things look like. So here's a mouse. It's IT. This one says it's restricted, but it's not blocked. So here's where we take a look at that exceptions list. As your approver, they're going to say yes or no, you're allowed to get this. And here is the DTS exceptions list that we were talking about. Nice, Blake. Solomon, if you can find this link, can you link it in the chat just so everybody has it?
Yep, I'll publish it.
Thank you so much. So here's where the optional DTS, no exceptions are needed. This is where you're going to find a lot of those restricted items. So a tablet without Windows, mice, keyboard, adapters, cables, power cords, thumb drives, non-DTS managed mobile phones, DVD, Blu-rays, projectors, not networked UPSs, speakers, digital cameras, fuses, laptop batteries, printers, GPS, or Garmin devices. So thanks, Solomon. So this is where you're going to, or your approver is going to make that decision. They should be checking this list to make sure that it's not up here on this gray area or this top level where we absolutely, running a separate procurement, would need this to run through DTS. So if you guys have any questions, Solomon's linked that. And you can go through and kind of see what blocked and restriction as far as the DTS category comes up, because I know that's kind of that's a big thing, like a docking station, that's still going to need to go through DTS.
Yep, for sure. And I'd just like to add, Laurel, that this is a living document. So it's important to check it periodically. So don't just get in your mind like, oh, this thing is like always okay. I only say that because I know, for example, it used to be okay to buy certain printers, and now it's not. They're all need to go through DTS. They've all been raised to that top tier, that top row, where you have to go through DTS. And so it's a living document. You'll want to check it periodically if you're an approver or a buyer, especially if you're an approver, because your name's going to be saying that you approved that restricted item within the system. And so you want to make sure, if you're using our state account, that if you're an approver, that you're regularly checking this document anytime something comes through that might be on it.
Yeah, and the last updated date is just up here on the right-hand corner. So the last date on this one, it was updated March 9th. So check to make sure that you're on the right version. Don't just screenshot this and think it's forever. Mike, if you don't fall under the DTS exception, then I would say, and you don't have any other rules in your organization of how to procure IT items, I would say that you're okay.
So that's a little complicated. So let me just say, you're okay to buy it, but it might not be on statewide contract, because we have identified this document, whether you have to go through DTS or not. We've identified this document to define what is IT and what is within and without the scope of IT for Amazon's contract. So if you don't need to go through DTS, you could maybe still, but it is something that DTS needs to normally approve. IE is not on the Amazon contract scope. You might still be able to buy it on Amazon if there's no other place you're supposed to buy it as a small purchase within your small purchase rules. But if you're wanting to make an on statewide contract purchase, it needs to be in the bottom row here where it says no DTS needed. That's how we're defining what IT is for Amazon's contract.
So I guess somewhat to rephrase it, if it was a purchase,
make it sound better, Solomon, please.
I'll just explain it. So if it was a purchase that would have required DTS involvement, were they under DTS jurisdiction, then it's beyond the scope of this contract. Is that right?
And if they're not under DTS's jurisdiction.
Right.
Because in Amazon's contract, it says, it refers to this list to define what is IT for Amazon's contract. So in a sense, it's kind of arbitrary in the sense that not all the agencies and users of the statewide contract will be under DTS, but it is at least an identifiable list where we can look and say, hey, here's a bunch of examples of what we mean is IT that you can't buy, that everyone for the statewide contract scope needs to follow, again, whether you're under DTS or not. And like I said, you still might be able to buy it under a small purchase rule or something, but you'll have to be careful there because one of the advantages to using a statewide contract, of course, is those thresholds go away, and you can, buy what you need, regardless of that amount within, your budget and everything. So, yeah, hopefully that makes sense and answered your question, Mike.
Or confused you more.
Or,
There it is. So I wanted to talk a couple minutes just about the approval paths that we have set up. You guys, as the agency, determine who you want as the administrators on the account, who you want to be able to, I believe they're called requisitioners, and then we have administrators, and then we have approvers. So there's different levels or titles or roles within the Amazon account that you will be assigned when you fill out the email invite that you'll get if you're a new participating entity. We can help guide you through. You can say, hey, here's the approval path that I want. So I've got so-and-so, they're going to buy this. And then so-and-so is our finance director, and they're going to be the approver on it. So there's a flow of how everything works. You can have up to 10 approvers on each account. Correct me if that's old or new information, Blake. I think that's still accurate. Okay, cool. And then up to 10 levels of approvals. So if you want a rule that we don't have by default as a state on your account, let us know, and we can set up a customized rule or approval path for you if you want 2 approvers and not just 1. If you need it to go intermediate and then a final approval, we can set that up for you. It does have to be something that we do custom. So just let me know, and we can schedule a time to go through your account and set up those approval rules. As we discussed, there's the restricted items, and then we do have a default rule on everyone that orders over $1,000 need approval no matter what. So that's not necessarily in conjunction or related to the small purchase threshold, but it is I guess runs parallel to it. It was a guideline that we followed when setting up that rule, just kind of, since it is the small purchase threshold that we follow, that needs that procurement or quote level. We just want to be mindful of spending over $1,000 on Amazon, since if it wasn't an Amazon product, you would have to go through a procurement process for that single item. So just being mindful that things over $1,000 will need approval no matter what it is. A couple of cool additional features. Amazon does do a dynamic pricing model. So this means we're not constantly having to amend the contract when there's price changes. Obviously, how in the world with millions of products to buy would we ever be able to maintain a catalog? So where I think, circling back to Mike, the pricing, I won't say that we get better pricing because it's on statewide contract like a lot of the other statewide contracts, but they do have the dynamic model where it's kind of flows with the market. If they do an increase, that's what the price is. Sometimes things go on sale, you still benefit from that. Something that's a cool option that I just discovered from Blake is that there's a quantity discount section. If you go to the website, I don't dare to do a live demo, so I just screenshotted. I'm sorry. Quantity discounts right here. So if you click on that, it'll take you to this page here, and they do offer discounts for bulk orders. So that's a cool feature that you can kind of look into if you need certain supplies in large quantities. They do have that discount option, and then that is an actual lower price option that is offered, since everything else is dynamically priced. It's not a set contracted rate like our traditional statewide contracts. And last thing on my agenda was to remind you guys, absolutely don't forget that there are other contracts out there. This one is super convenient. I have more Amazon boxes in my house than I should admit to. It's my default, it's my go-to. But that's my money. If I'm spending taxpayer money, I need to make sure that I'm being diligent with that, getting quotes from the other vendors that are on statewide contract. There are other office and school supplies contracts, and there are other office furniture contracts. So just be mindful, make sure that you're getting quotes as much as possible, even if it's as quick as going in at Amazon, seeing the price on Amazon, and then going to the Staples contract and seeing, Staples might be $5 cheaper. So it is still a best value decision, but we strongly encourage to always get competition, get quotes, make sure that you're getting the best value that's out there.
Amen. I just want to say too, like, Amazon is so convenient. I know we do a lot of presentations on Amazon. People might wonder why. It's just because it's always been such a unique thing that we had no control over before. And so we still get a lot of questions on it. But yeah, definitely make sure you are going out to those other contracts and looking at the other options, because even though they're all on statewide contract and you can just choose who you want, at least under our rules in R33, you do have the obligation of checking all the contracts. So just make sure you do your due diligence.
Perfect. Like I said, I've just kind of taken over from Blake in the past couple months. There are some additional features that I am not 100% privy to. We do have some analytics, some reports that we can run for you guys. If you're interested on any reporting on your annual spend, things like that, just reach out and let me know. And that's something that I can dive into further for you. I didn't feel comfortable doing a whole spiel on it because I'm still learning about it, but that is a feature that we offer. So if you do want any kind of reports or anything like that, reach out and we can figure out how to get you a spend report.
Does anyone have any other questions? Or is Solomon just going to keep making NIGP plugs shamelessly?
I'll keep
Hey,
posting
Blake.
comments until everybody's registered.
Hi,
Go ahead,
Shad.
Chad.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I wanted to just bring this up, and maybe you guys can just mention the personal use of this contract under your state email address.
Yeah. So none. You don't use this for personal use. Is that what you mean, Shad?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's sometimes easy to hop in there and do it. And sometimes people may do it inadvertently.
Right.
But the use of this contract is not for personal use. I just wanted to make everybody aware.
That's a really good point. And there's a really legitimate, real life reason why, other than just it's the work one, we have no sales tax on our state account. And so if you're making personal purchases using the state account, you are getting an inappropriate benefit and you should be paying sales tax on that item. And we've ran into a couple situations where, like Shad said, some of our users have inadvertently bought personal items on their state Amazon account, not realizing they were logged in. And there is a process for them to pay that sales tax after. I think it gets called use tax or something. But anyway, you don't want to have to go through that, even if you make an accident. So always make sure which one you're on. And of course, no nefarious activity trying to use it for personal use.
We also have an address report that we run. And if it's a suspicious address, it's not, the registered P card address that we have affiliated with the P card on file, we will be reaching out to verify. I know a lot of us telework, we're home, but we do remember, or we do double check to make sure that if it's not a registered address, we're going to reach out to you guys and say, hey, why'd this go here and not here? So making sure that that's also kind of a double check that we have for you guys.
Yeah, and your administrator will see everything you buy, like Jared said. So no funny business.
Well, if that's everything you've got, Laurel, unless there's other questions from the audience here, that really wraps up and concludes our brown bag session for today. Again, thank you for joining us and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.